Hey guys, so for this video, I'm going to cover all the best settings for Chapter 2 Season 3. Now, as I'm sure you all know, the game looks and feels a lot different this season. The nighttime is much darker than it was before, and games are 10 times laggier, and everything you do feels weirdly delayed. If this is something you're currently experiencing, do not worry because you are not alone. We are all on the struggle bus together. As the conductor of the struggle bus, however, it is my duty to try and get you off of it. That's why I gathered up all the most helpful FPS Boost tricks I could and am ready to share them here today. These will be for console, mobile, Switch, and PC, and will include new optimizations to help boost your in-game frames. With all of that being said, let's get right on into it. To start off, I'll talk about what's on everyone's mind, the new Battle Royale colors. I don't know about you guys, but when I first started playing this season, my game looked atrocious. Not even in terms of its resolution or graphic quality, but more so the nighttime colors. I kid you not, I probably died 3 or 4 times that day just because I could not see people in the dark. This is something I never had trouble with in the past. Even back when Chapter 2 originally began and Epic completely changed the look of the game, I could still see all of my opponents. What I figured out from Destiny's Jesus, aka the best coach in EU, was to first go into my settings and increase my brightness to 125%. As you can see after I do that, this makes a huge difference during the nighttime compared to the 100% brightness option. The overall map is no longer as dark and you can make out way more objects in the distance. Plus, if that's not good enough, you can technically go all the way up to 150%. I myself would not go this high since it kind of makes the game too bright. Still, I highly recommend bumping up your in-game brightness to anywhere from 120% to 125%. Once you've done that, the next thing you should do is minimize or close out of your game so you're on your desktop. Yes, that unfortunately means this step is not applicable to console players. Don't worry though, because I'll make it back up to you guys in a minute. Returning to the trick, and you'll want to right click your home screen and go to your Nvidia settings. After they load up, click the Adjust Desktop Color Settings tab on the left, tick the box next to the number 2 that reads Use Nvidia Settings, and then increase your brightness to 55%, your contrast to 55% too, and put your digital vibrance option to 60%. Your settings should look exactly like this, with the brightness and contrast at 55% and the digital vibrance at 60%. What this will do is make your in-game colors much brighter and easier to differentiate. Like, do you notice how on the default settings, which is what I'm currently showing on your screen, everything is basically the same shade of blue at the nighttime? That also applies to your opponents and makes things like box fighting insanely hard to do. I have perfect 20/20 vision with my glasses on, yet I can barely see the bot hitting my wall. On the other hand, with the Nvidia settings I just showed, as well as the 125% in-game brightness, my game looks infinitely better. All the colors stand out a lot more, and I can actually see the person trying to pressure my wall. Not to mention, a higher digital vibrance will help you see people in the storm and in the water. The only reason it's so hard to see people at night is because everything is the same dark and dull blue. To make matters worse, the in-game water is the same shade and takes up 60% of the map. That's a recipe for disaster when it comes to spotting enemies. With a higher digital vibrance, however, the colors on your opponents will pop more and you'll be able to see them with ease. The final tip to make your game look better is to turn off any colorblind mode. In the past, colorblind modes were extremely useful. They helped you see through the storm, and more often than not, made your colors look more contrasted. In Chapter 2 Season 3, colorblind modes actually do the opposite. They make it harder to see into zone and make all your colors blend in. That is not what you want on top of all the other issues I just addressed. The deteuranope colorblind mode alone will negate all the changes we just made to make your game look better. It may actually make your game look worse than there being no changes at all. To prove my point, FaZe Mongrel, who has used the deteuranope colorblind option since Season 8, just recently switched off of it. He saw how bad it made his game look and knew he could not play like that. So unless you think you know better than FaZe Mongrel or you're actually colorblind, there is no reason you should have any of those options enabled. Moving on, the next tricks I'll cover will all help with your FPS. On both console and PC, I recommend going into your settings, over to the game settings on the second tab, all the way down to the bottom, and turning off record replays. Replays in Season 3 take up a huge amount of space on your console or computer's hard drive. Therefore, by disabling it, your game will look and feel much smoother. I get replays are very useful to look back at for your mistakes, but just think, there's a pretty good chance the extra 20 to 30 FPS you get by disabling your replays will make you play better and make less mistakes. No joke, the replay mode option literally literally says leaving it on will reduce your performance. I think that's all you need to see to make your decision. The other thing you can do with your already saved replays is just go through them in the career tab and delete all of the replays you do not need. I usually will delete everything before I start playing for the day, so even though Epic does do this every new patch on their own, it will definitely help your performance a lot more if you do it before that. Continuing on with the FPS tricks, I'm briefly going to run through all the best video settings. Those are these options on the first page of your in-game settings. Beginning at the top, your game should be in full screen mode. Full screen mode is the one that does not allow you to go into other applications as you play, but as it says next to the option, it will make your game run faster. The faster your game runs, the more FPS you will get. Below that, I have my in-game res set to 1920 by 1080, however, I recommend you guys on lower end PCs play on 1600 by 900. This is not a stretched resolution or anything like that, it's simply a slightly more blurry version of native res. Why I recommend it is it will make your game run buttery smooth. A huge reason pros love stretched res is because of the FPS boost it offers. Well, this does the same exact thing, except it does not stretch your game out at all. After that, frame rate limit should be set at one value above your monitor's refresh rate. That means if you play on a 60Hz monitor, set your FPS cap to 120. If you play on a 144Hz monitor, set your FPS cap to 160. Finally, if you're like me on a 240Hz monitor, do not go to unlimited. Unlimited will cause you huge stutters because your FPS will fluctuate so much. Instead, set it to 240 or 237 depending if you use G-Sync. We already went over these graphics settings right here. I said to put brightness at 125%, user interface contrast at whatever you want, and no colorblind mode. As for the quality options, I do not recommend using the auto set quality button. What that will do is just spit out some insanely high settings that will destroy your FPS. My advice is to use the low quality preset option and put your 3D resolution back to 100%. All this does is change these different options to lower off and make your game look normal. That's also what I use and how I can consistently get good frames. The only quality setting I would recommend tinkering with is your textures. Way back when Chapter 2 first started, I talked about a really useful FPS trick where you set your textures to as high as you can and turn multi-threaded rendering on. I guess doing this forces your GPU to help out your processor, thus improving your overall frames. I tried this again in Season 3 and it actually worked pretty well. My frames are much more stable in arena endgames than they were with textures off. Be aware though, this will not work for everyone. Some of you guys likely have way better processors than GPUs, meaning it's better you leave the CPU alone to do that stuff. Nonetheless, go and still try it out. At the bottom, under advanced graphics, turn VSync off, motion blur off, and show FPS on. DirectX version depends entirely on your PC. Essentially what it does is it optimizes how your computer renders images in Fortnite. This will hopefully put less strain on your PC, giving you better and more stable frames. The thing is, DX12 only works well with newer and beefier graphics cards. These include the 20 series, the 16 series, and the more powerful GPUs from the 10 series. Oh, and before I forget, it can cause your game to crash if you alt tab a lot. So take my advice, try both out, and see which one you get better frames with. I use DX12 with the 1070 Ti. Final two video settings are the multi-threaded rendering and GPU crash debugging. Directly from Epic, multi-threaded rendering splits the drawing across multiple threads, which can dramatically improve performance on multi-core processors. For those of you that don't know how many cores you have, press Ctrl-Alt-Delete on your keyboard and go to your task manager. From there, click Performance, go to the CPU, and look down on the right for a line that says Cores. If it says anything greater than or equal to 4, I highly recommend turning multi-threaded rendering on. You should get a considerable FPS boost from it. On the other hand, if you only have 2 cores, you should probably leave it off. Having it on with a weak processor will actually cause stutters and hitches. Just try out both. Last but not least, GPU crash debugging should be off. I know for a fact having it on will really hurt your FPS. So although it may help Epic, they can figure that crap out for themselves. To wrap up the video, I'll cover a really overlooked FPS boost that not even most pro players utilize. The trick is to disable hardware acceleration on Google Chrome, Discord, and Spotify. Starting with Google Chrome, open the browser up, click the 3 dots on the top right, hit Settings, Advanced, System, and turn the Use Hardware Acceleration when available option off. Next, for Discord, open it up, click on the settings on the bottom, go to Appearance, and once you scroll down, you should see Hardware Acceleration. Turn that off like you did for Chrome. Finally, for Spotify, head over to the 3 dots on the top left, View, and in the View tab, you can see the hardware hardware acceleration option. Make sure you uncheck it and restart when it gives you the prompt. Turning hardware acceleration off will allow your GPU to fully focus all of its resources on Fortnite. This will greatly boost your frames, reduce the amount of stutters you get, and make your game feel way more responsive. So for all of you guys who have these applications open when you play, make sure you disable hardware acceleration on all of them. Overall guys, those are the best settings for Fortnite Chapter 2 Season 3. Let me know down below which of those tricks helped you the most, as well as how bad your frames have been recently. On top of that, if you enjoyed this video, do be sure to drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and to turn on post notifications. Shout out to everyone using code JERIAN. I've been getting some messages recently of people using the wrong code, so please remember my code is JERIan, not itsJerian. Use code JERIAN. Otherwise, that's it from me, and I will see you guys in the next one. Later.